Welcome everyone to a brand new episode of Bearish or Bullish. I'm Julie Alexandria. He's JC Peretz. JC, how are you this fine day?
Couldn't be better. Bull market, Julie.
We have lots of great stuff to get to. Okay, let's talk about risk assets, bearish, bullish, specifically copper. What do you think?
Listen, it's a bull market in risk assets. Copper is included in that. Short term, I got some people talking about a potential double top in copper. For me, it looks like a digestion of gains at the same levels that copper sold off of in 2011. We've been in the camp that we're in the early stages of a commodity super cycle, and I think copper breaking out of a 10-year base would probably be a feather in the hat for the bulls in that thesis, and I'm going to stick with that. And again, it's not just copper. We're seeing it in Australian dollar, semiconductors, risk assets, and it's not because of the Powell or the Fed or the GDP or any of this stuff. There is just more money being allocated to risk assets than there are risk assets to feed that demand. That's just what it is. So that when there's more demand than supply, prices go up. Like, we don't have to overthink this.
Why is that, though?
Well, if more people are trying to get something, like, for example, I'm mining helium right now, right? So I'm trying to get my hands on these helium miners. They're impossible to get. So retail is $400, $450, but you got to wait 3 to 6 months to get it. But if you want it now, like I do, you're going to pay a 75% premium to that retail price, or twice, or 100% premium to that retail price. Why? Because there's more demand for these things than there are supply. So the price is doubled, and I can attest because I'm the one paying double the price. So it's just classic supply and demand dynamics.
All right, I know you've been doing a lot of speaking on this week. Let's talk Bitcoin, bearish or bullish.
There's nothing more bullish for an asset than new highs. Right? It's literally the most bullish thing an asset can do, whether it's a stock or a stock market index, or in this case, a cryptocurrency, whatever it is. There's nothing more bullish, right? Further evidence that there's more demand than supply. Now, where is it acting a little messy, Bitcoin? At the same levels that it retreated from back in May, where it essentially got cut in half pretty quickly. So there's market memory here. We know from experience that there's more supply than demand for Bitcoin around 64, 65,000. We know that. And the market is sort of reiterating that as we speak. The question now is, for copper and for Bitcoin for that matter, how long does it take demand to finally absorb all of that overhead supply? And since my crystal ball's in the shop, I don't know how long it's going to take. So what we can do is we can look at all the brothers and the sisters. What are other cryptocurrencies doing? Are they breaking out to new highs, or are they getting crushed and Bitcoin's ultimately going to follow? I see more and more breaking out to new highs, Julie.
Okay, so by that rationale, what other altcoins do you have your eyes on?
Listen, we're super long the Algorand. It's not acting the best one, so I clearly wish that I had more Axie Infinity. We bullish Axie Infinity. It's another good one, especially if we start taking out 156. I think this goes to 200 and beyond. And honestly, I was talking to a smart guy today about Ethereum, and he understands sort of the fundamentals of Cardano and Ethereum and the smart contracts and things like that way more than I could ever. And I love having conversations like that. I get to learn a lot. But the bottom line is, I'm like, all right, great. So what do you buy? And he's like, I think Ethereum's going to have, a big week. Here we are sitting at 4,400 for Ethereum. The bottom line is, if Ethereum is above those former highs from May, you got to own it. And I think the rule of thumb right now for crypto is that if you own cryptos that are not above their first half highs, you own the wrong cryptocurrencies, right? We want to own the relative strength. So from a risk reward profile, to me, it's very simple. Ethereum's a good example. We only want to be long if we're above those former highs. Look at Cosmos, look at Avalanche, look at Algorand, look at Elrond, Harmony, Helium. So many of these are very similar. And then even the stocks themselves, look at Mara, M-A-R-A, and also look at Hut Mining. If these are above their first half highs, a lot of those look like all these cryptos. It's really the same trade, but we want to own the relative strength. So if it's not above the first half highs, we don't want to own it. It's that simple.
Yeah, that's a great barometer. So from Bitcoin, let's go to the old way, the US dollar. Bearish or bullish?
Oh, the US dollar. This has certainly been the topic of conversation. I want to say for the last couple of weeks, because we've seen, I got to tell you, really relentless strength in the US dollar. And if we're going to have a real ripper in risk assets, I think a weaker dollar is more of a need than a want, right? If the dollar starts ripping and starts taking out that 94.5, 95 on the dollar index, I have to believe that that is going to put pressure on stocks and commodities, right? I have to believe. And maybe, the fact that interest rates have been wishy-washy, maybe the dollar and rates are telling us the same thing. Now, what I don't want to do is I don't want to overthink the US dollar. People love to overthink the US dollar in some cases because they think it's really important. In other cases, they want to sound smart, but we see it from either party. So whenever we talk about the dollar, I want to look at myself in the mirror and I don't talk about things to sound smart. So I'm not really worried about that, but I am worried about me overthinking the dollar. That one gets me, right? It's not the ego, it's the overthinking that gets me. And I know that about myself, and that's where self-awareness comes in. You need to know yourself. Where are you more vulnerable? Some people are better at certain aspects of life than you are. But it's important to know what you're good at and what you're not. Lean on what you're good at, where you could depend on yourself, and then focus on fixing little things like, in my opinion, in my case, overthinking the intermarket relationships, particularly with the dollar. So I think while a weaker dollar certainly is bullish for risk assets, trade what's in front of you. If copper's breaking out, buy the damn copper. If a stock you own is breaking out, buy the stock. Don't be like, oh, I'm not going to buy it because the dollar's strong, right? You feel me?
Absolutely. You definitely have to lean on those that know how to do it and see it and feel it better than you. This is why I come to you for all my wine advice. Okay, let's keep it financial. Let's talk treasury rates.
We're seeing the yield curve flatten out. But what I think is important to reiterate is that the bank stocks continue to stay strong despite the yield curve flattening, which I think is constructive. When I think interest rates, when I think yield curve, I think banks, I think financials. So banks are holding up relatively well, but where the real leadership is there is in the exchange stocks. Look at ICE, look at SIBO trying to break out of a base. Look at NASDAQ, not the Qs, but the company, NDAQ. Look at CME. These are some of the strongest stocks, particularly in financials. So if interest rates are going to go higher, those are going to benefit. But they seem to be benefiting regardless of what rates are doing on a day-to-day basis. So, for me, keep it simple, stupid, and focus on what's in front of you and bet on that. So as far as rates are going to, just in general, which way are they going to move? I'd be looking at the copper-gold ratio. The copper-gold ratio tends to trade in sync with the U.S. 10-year yield. And if that's a failed breakout in the copper-gold ratio, and now that's flipped, and you're going to see strength in precious metals relative to base metals for the first time in ages, that does not bode well for interest rates. That's good for bonds and an environment where you want to be buying bonds. So, coming full circle to that copper, I think all of that is related. What's happening with the banks, what's happening with the exchanges, what's happening in base metals and precious metals. To me, all that's tied into rates. But if we're above 1.4% on the U.S. 10-year yield, I think you got to continue to give the benefit of the doubt to the bond bears and stick with stocks and commodities for now.
And since your crystal ball, I know you said it's in the shop, but just before whatever happened to it, you knew that the Braves were going to make it into the World Series. So here we are. We are in the midst of the World Series. The Braves are in it. I want to know, first of all, who do you think is going to take it? Astros or Braves?
I think it would be funny if the Astros took it with no microphones. Like, that would just be funny, right? Like, everybody's hating on the Astros and then they come back and they win it. Like, that would be funny to me as just like as an observer of the whole thing without a horse in the race. Honestly, I'm happy that they're going to stop with that. The Braves are getting a lot of hate with the chop, because I'm a Hurricanes fan and the Seminoles have been singing those stupid songs literally my entire life. And it's just torture and annoying. And like, seriously, that's the smartest thing you guys could come up with? Like, oh, you sound like a bunch of idiots. So honestly, for other reasons that have nothing to do with the Braves, I'm glad that they're giving them shit for the chop so that the Seminoles stop with their nonsense as well. That's how I feel about that.
I happen to agree with you. Jeff Passan would as well. That article for ESPN.com was straight on the money. Okay, wine pairing for your ideal World Series viewing party. What would you pair with the World Series wine-wise?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what I'm doing as I watch Game 3 this evening is we're starting with a 2004 Rioja Reserva, which is going to be very nice from a lot of these Spanish wineries, they'll age their wines at their minimum requirements and then age it more. This is one of those. So, you know, that aging in the barrel is gonna let it live longer. So we're looking at, what is a 17-year-old wine. So I'm really looking forward to that. But I'm gonna start with a 1999 Auslese German Riesling. It's an Auslese. I got my hands on like some great aged Riesling. And then while I was buying some German wines, I got myself a Trockenbier in Auslese. And a Trockenbier in Auslese has a very high residual sugar, which goes great with dessert. And I just happen to have a cheesecake waiting for me.
Wow. Homemade cheesecake or?
No, I ordered it from Junior's on Goldbelly.
Boom. I love Goldbelly. Let me tell you, I do get New York bagels shipped here to the West Coast.
They're so good. Seriously,
They're so good.
Julie,
They're so
you nailed
good.
it. They're so good. And whenever I'm in New York, I'm not getting bagels. I'm getting sushi. So I don't get my fix. And the other day I ordered bagels because I had a whole bunch of people coming. Oh my God, they're so good.
They're so good. You don't even realize how good they are until you bite into it. Essa Bagel's phenomenal. Yes. It's so good. So good. I actually ordered mine. I totally know it. I mean, I got an order from Pastrami Queen on the Upper West Side coming my way next week. I can't wait.
Gotta get the cherry pie from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm
Who
telling
knew?
you, cherry pie.
I will look into it for sure. JC, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for all of this and so much more. Guys, be sure to check out allstarcharts.com and we'll see you next time.
Trockenbier in Auslese on you on that shit like that?
What? Damn, I'm like, can you just like describe shit to me all the time?
Trockenbier in Auslese. It took me a long time to learn how to pronounce that, so I'm very proud that I'm good at pronouncing